During my 7 years studying medicine at Cambridge University, I was presented with the biggest academic challenges I'd ever faced in my life. It was sink or swim, and what I learned during this time about the true value of studying was absolutely crucial to my academic development. I realized learning is not all about studying harder, but rather studying smarter. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 7 specific and simple study habits I've adopted, which saved both my grades and my sanity, and can hopefully do the same for you. Today, we'll go beyond just the basics of active recall and spaced repetition, which you might be familiar with if you've watched some of my other videos, and I'll bring you along on a little journey with me through each of my years at Cambridge, from first year up to my 7th year. I've made a mini Notion guide with all of these tips, which you can access totally for free via the link below if you're interested. If you're new here, my name's Izzy, I'm a Cambridge graduate and a doctor. Without further ado, let's get into the video. The first habit is the co-working habit. Studying is not known for being a particularly fun activity, but that doesn't mean we can't try. During my first year of university, one of my friends who was also studying medicine studied with me every single day during our first year exam term. We'd meet up in the morning and start studying together, then go get lunch in college together in hall, and generally support each other through the whole process. We'd cover topics at the same time and help each other check our work. This made it feel so much more fun and enjoyable and sustainable, and then when we ultimately passed all of our exams together, we felt a real sense of camaraderie and could celebrate together. It can be really easy to sort of retreat into your own space when studying and shut out the outside world, and thinking that by being zoned in we do things more effectively. But in reality, this is actually a great time to work with friends to not only bounce ideas off each other, but also to strengthen those friendships. Additionally, having an accountability buddy for something is actually proven to increase goal success and help you to move towards whatever your goal is. So for example, in the case of studying with a friend and keeping each other accountable can help you to feel that sense of accountability and get things done within a certain hour, day, week, month. You can make an agreement together and be like, today we're going to get through all of the topics in renal, for example. Number 2 is the core content habit. My second year of medical school was when we had the most preclinical knowledge to learn. It's literally a volume of knowledge that I'd never experienced before. Among Cambridge medical students as well, it was a notorious year for burnout, which was something that I personally experienced and also several of my friends. And I have a video talking more about that. I'll link that somewhere over here. It was physically impossible to learn everything and know everything. And one of the features of the preclinical medical curriculum at Cambridge is that the syllabus is not clearly defined and there's almost an unlimited volume of stuff to learn if you wanted to, which was a feeling I was really not used to, as previously at school I was always able to learn everything on the syllabi because it was very much limited. So here I learned to apply the Pareto principle, also known as the 80-20 rule. This concept was discovered by Italian economist Vilfredo Pareto, who in 1896 observed that roughly 80% of Italy's land was owned by roughly 20% of its population. And he continued to notice this 80-20 phenomenon. For example, 20% of the plants in his garden bore 80% of all the fruit. The central idea behind this concept is that 80% of all functional outcomes result from 20% of causes. So when you study, focus on the core topics first. In other words, focus on that rough 20% that's going to give you around 80% of the results. Laser focus in to all of those 20% on each topic before moving on to anything else or going into more depth. For example, in pharmacology, which is the study of medications and mechanism of drug action, I would start by learning the core drug classes and also the main few examples of these as the core 20% of the knowledge, before only later considering adding all the rest of the drugs in that class, some of which aren't actually used in clinical practice anymore, and also any specific side effects for any niche drugs that aren't really used anymore. By establishing this core understanding of these core content areas, I could reap 80% of the benefit of studying without having to go through all of the niche details that were unlikely to really come up in the exam in any big way. Number 3 is the curiosity habit, which is essentially about leading with curiosity. Curiosity can be defined as an intrinsic motivation to learn. In my third year at Cambridge, I intercalated with a Bachelor of Arts in biological anthropology, which essentially is the study of human evolution, health, cultural development, social networks, since 7 million years ago. This was assessed by essays and also a dissertation with some research, and was more free-form than my preclinical medical studies, and I found myself learning a lot and also being able to tailor my learning to what I was interested about. I learned to follow my curiosity with academia, and so for example, in one of my modules which is around social networks, one of the topics was memes, and I found myself asking more questions about how memes spread and how viral memes can become a part of our culture and spread throughout a whole society so so quickly. And as a side effect of this, I realized that the things I was genuinely curious about really stuck in my memory so much more. You might have found this yourself when you find yourself remembering really random and potentially not very applicable or functional facts that are just really interesting and you're genuinely curious about. And actually there's a lot of science behind this, because when exploring a topic to learn about, we learn much more effectively and retain more information when we're genuinely curious about it. In this study, which I'll pop on screen, the researchers found that curiosity does indeed have a potent effect on learning itself. In both immediate and one-day delayed memory tests, participants showed improved memory for information that they were curious about and for incidental material learned during states of high curiosity. As part of this study, they did fMRI scans, which stands for functional magnetic resonance imaging, and they found that activity in the midbrain and nucleus accumbens was enhanced during states of high curiosity. So essentially, if you're in this state of really being in the sense of wonder, of like, oh, I really wonder what happens next, or oh, why does this happen? Then you can naturally learn things more effectively and remember stuff much more efficiently. So you might be thinking, okay, Izzy, but what if I'm not curious about a subject I'm learning in school? And that's really a fair point, because I think we've all been here and not everything we learn will naturally be interesting to us. I'll talk a bit more about how we can deal with content that we don't find super interesting or that we find difficult in habits 5 and 6, so stick around for that if you're interested. Number 4 is the less is more habit, which is essentially about working less, which I'm sure you'll be very pleased to hear. In my 4th year, I started my clinical studies, and I started clinical patient-facing placements in hospitals. I'd go into placement from 9 to 5 and then try to go home and study afterwards and maybe go to the gym and push myself. And I found that quite quickly I was getting like really tired out and my energy levels were dropping along with my productivity. I found something really unexpected, which was the less I pushed myself to work when I was feeling drained, the better I actually learned and performed. This links in with the point before about curiosity, where when I was allowing myself to really rest and recharge and feel curious and excited to learn, I was able to memorize and learn and absorb material much more effectively. Through this experience, I discovered firsthand how important taking care of yourself and actually allowing time to rest is. I know literally everyone harps on and on about how important it is to take breaks and allow yourself to rest. It's so true. So take it from me, after 7 years of studying at Cambridge, I'm telling you, work less. In his book titled Rest, Why You Get More Done When You Work Less, rest expert Alex Sujin Kim Pang talks about the benefits of rest and its ability to help you think more creatively and effectively. He recommends simple measures like taking breaks to walk or nap, which can really replenish your energy, fill up your cup, and boost your ability to concentrate. One crucial component of rest that he also mentions is stopping at the right time, and this can be actually really counterintuitive and actually super interesting. So this actually triggered my curiosity and is something I won't forget. Pang recommends that you actually stop working at just the right point, which is when you see your next move, but you decide to leave it until tomorrow. The writer Ernest Hemingway was a famous advocate of this practice actually, and he would say to always stop when you know what is going to happen next. Overall, this is a great way to avoid burnout and also provide a sense of clarity and ease of restarting, reducing that activation energy when you're starting work the next day, because you already know your next step. Of course, the crucial foundation of rest is getting proper sleep. I've made a more in-depth video all about this subject, which you can check out over here with a bunch of evidence-based tips if you're interested. And when we talk about rest, we mean real, genuine, relaxing activities that allow your body and mind to actually take a break from overstimulation. So while I don't mean to say that technology can never be involved, so such as watching a movie or show can sometimes be a nice way to unwind, try to be mindful about what you choose to do during this rest period. And I would potentially controversially suggest that scrolling on Instagram doesn't really count as true rest and unwinding. And instead, maybe take some time to read a book, stay away from screens, maybe go for a walk, something like that. Number 5 is the sprint habit. In my 5th year of medical school, we had the infamous pathology exam at Cambridge, which was one of, if not the most challenging exam I've ever taken in my life. For this exam, we'd have to interpret histological slides, understand the pathophysiology of disease, along with clinical presentation, investigation, and management. Some of the content was unbelievably dry. So I experimented with a lot of different ways to try to combat this, and one thing that I found really helped was blocking a set time to focus, Pomodoro style. By using a Pomodoro technique, we can make learning feel a bit more motivating and encourage ourselves to study dry or difficult material. If you're unfamiliar, the Pomodoro technique is a method of studying developed by a student in Italy named Francesco Cirillo in the 1980s. It was named Pomodoro because the clock that he used was shaped like a tomato, which is Pomodoro in Italian. The key steps are: number 1, get your to-do list and a timer. 2, set your timer for 25 minutes, which is the set time for a Pomodoro, and then focus on a single task until the timer rings. Number 3, when your session ends, mark off a Pomodoro, take a 5-minute break. In Cirillo's book, he recommends 25-minute Pomodoro intervals and 5-minute break intervals, but you can actually tinker with these times, and various different studies have found different times work for different people. Often our minds and bodies work in almost ultradian rhythms, which are usually around 90 minutes. So generally, setting a focus period of somewhere between 25 up to maybe 90 minutes would be effective. And generally I find that for drier material, shorter Pomodoros are better because it's more mentally draining to make yourself look at something that you really don't want to. Whereas if it's something that you can get into a flow with, then try increasing the Pomodoro duration, because then you can actually really get into some deep work on the topic. 6 is the triplet habit, which is scheduling 3 blocks of studying with a topic for each in a day. In my 6th year at Cambridge, COVID lockdowns had hit and delayed a lot of teaching and exams, and I ended up taking a gap and some time out for part of the year, and I was at home with a lot of unstructured time. I found that by planning each day with 3 topic themes, I could give myself some sense of structure. For example, in the morning, I'd study Mandarin, then in the afternoon slots, in the early afternoon, I'd learn medicine, and then in the late afternoon, maybe I'd learn about another medicine topic. Groundbreaking, I know. It's a great way to divide up the day and have a variety of topics to study, but still allow time to focus fully on each one. And by its nature, this is very helpful with unstructured days. So in my case, this was during COVID lockdowns, but it could be something really helpful if you have weekends or if you're a student who has full days to study, to see if it helps bring clarity, focus, and motivation to your day. Number 7 is the frog habit. In my final year at Cambridge Medical School, I had exams which were the culmination of all of the years of study beforehand, which was like meant to be the pinnacle of my clinical knowledge and examination skills. For these, I had to demonstrate that I was fully ready to graduate as a doctor. I learned that I could make my day flow more smoothly by starting with the hardest tasks or topics first. I don't know about you, but I find that in the morning, my willpower to get through difficult things is much higher. So as soon as I wake up, if I get the hardest things out of the way, I'd feel a sense of momentum, and then the rest of my day would flow more easily because I'd be like, oh, ha, I've already finished the hardest thing. The rest of my day seems relatively pretty chill. This is summarized so nicely by this quote from Mark Twain, which I absolutely love. If it's your job to eat a frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning. And if it's your job to eat 2 frogs, it's best to eat the biggest one first. Of course, even in the morning, it can be hard to do things that you're intimidated by the most, and this won't work for everyone. And getting there is not an overnight process. So if you're looking for like a bit more guidance or inspiration on this subject, I'd really recommend the book Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. And if you're interested, you can read a summarized version with a few extra juicy links and analysis on short form, and you can get a free trial plus 20% off via my affiliate link down below if you're interested. If you enjoyed this video, I think you might like this one over here, where I talk about 7 life lessons from 7 years at Cambridge University, where I talk about the broader life lessons beyond just studying that I learned at Cambridge University, which are some of the most valuable things that I learned during my time there. Let me know in the comments below or via email if any of these tips helped, and if you have any more that you'd like to add. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!